To me, the Evans sound, there's such a unique durability about them. Probably my favorite head so far is the heavyweight. I didn't think we'd be using these in the studio, and man, they just hold up like beyond anything I've ever used before. I know those drums backwards, inside and out. Nothing's gonna change what's embedded in my brain. Well, Evans did. Just to have the drums that you know with a head you can rely on is everything.
Today we're joined by Chris Hornbrook, a drummer who helped carry the Orange County drum and percussion sound into heavier music. From Poison the Well to Senses Fail, Chris played a key role in shaping how O.C.D.P. translated into metalcore and hardcore, both on stage and through time spent inside the Orange County shop. Welcome to the Fully Vented Podcast. Now here's your host, Jared Fallon.
Before we just jump in, I want to say thanks again for doing this. Like I said, we were so stoked and glad we can make it happen.
Yeah,
I know scheduling could be hairy, but yeah, made it happen, and I'm stoked. So, man, you've had quite the career manning drums with Poison the Well, Senses Fail, Big Black Delta, and Danny Harrison, of course. But today we're here to talk about Orange County, of all things.
Blast from the past.
Yeah, I know, right? The fact it's what, it's 2025 and we're still talking about it.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of wild. I see every now and again I'll see drums pop up on Reverb or eBay or whatever, or get ad targeted for like a Orange County like bell brass snare drum that should be like $1,000, but is being sold for like $2 or $3 grand.
Oh, you'll see. Don't get me started with the way the market is. It's wild where somebody thinks they have something and you're like, dude, that's not
They're
even.
trying.
Yeah, you're like, what are you
They're
doing?
trying. I get it. Like there's some people think that we're still like pre-pandemic, where you could just ask absurd amounts of money for gear because everybody has free money from the government. So
Well, it also just blows my mind. You have the capabilities to literally just Google something and just figure out what exactly you have. Or with the Facebook groups, you could literally just post the drum and say, "Hey, what is this? Or what am I looking at?" And I can very easily just someone can go, "Oh no, that's Guitar Center. It was like $200 new. It's not worth $2 grand." But yet somehow people still try, and I'll
hey
give it
man,
to them. I'll give it
E
to them.
for effort. You get like a rich doctor that just wants to buy something like that, and it's like 22 grand's nothing for him. So
Yeah, but of course, somebody will buy it. Like sometimes we'll see something like someone's got a kit for sale, and it's like, hey, we're gonna charge 10 times more than what it was worth to, brand new. And somebody like sometimes they do sell, so who am I to judge? Whatever. But
I will say though that like if it's a sentimental piece and if somebody's hitting you up, you're just like, look, I know this isn't that worth that much, but this is sentimental and it's rare. This is what my price is. There's no rationale to it. This is just what my price is. So I've done that a few times of getting rid of drums where like I don't really want to get rid of it, but it kind of needs some money right now, but I'm just going to put it for this amount. But I'm not delusional about it. I'm like, I'm probably not gonna be able to sell this thing. Like I'm very realistic about like, oh, this is gonna take like a year to get rid of.
oh, I got one for you. This so you remember Dan Trapp played Orange County, and a couple years back you bought the blue vented snare that he had, and you had it for a few years, and then some guy bought it from you.
I asked. That's the story. That I asked for like way too much for it because I was like, it's still only one, and whatever, and I know it's not worth this, but this is just what my price is. But I was talking to somebody. I think it was upfront about it. I was like, I know it's not worth that. I think I sold that snare drum for like maybe $700 or $800. It wasn't.
That
and
seems
I got
reasonable to me.
But I got it from Dan for like $200, and it was sitting in a corner, just unkept, and he just didn't give a shit. He's just like, I don't play this. It makes one sound. That's not the sound that I need. Like, and I was like, I'll give you $200, and I had to go on and find the little box lugs and rebuild it and put a little love into it. But yeah, it's like change you for an entire kit.
Yeah, he's like a lot of famous drummers have played this, and I'm like, all right, dude. You know, I'm
Knock it
like,
off.
yeah, but
Knock it off.
mine's on a live DVD. Come on, dude. Like, it's a whole kit. But I
I
mean,
think the most famous thing about that snare drum, I would think it was on Conan O'Brien,
yeah,
or like Letterman or something like that.
yeah, and it's funny too. Like I've asked people, I'm like, what do you think ever happened to Dan's kit? No one seems to know. So if I ever find that thing, I'll be like, yeah, $10,000. That's what it's worth. But
I mean, like I said, if you're just kind of like, I know it's not worth that. That's just what I want.
yeah,
It like softens the blow, opposed to the people that are real delusional about it. That's like, oh no, it's because they're trying to justify it to themselves. Just be honest with yourself. That's just what you want.
yeah. I
You
mean,
know.
that's why we're here, man. Because people, the popularity is bigger than ever. So, can you do me a favor? Can you set the scene for what it was like in Florida since you guys started down with Poison the Well in Florida? Can you describe the scene down there?
Um, the scene was interesting because when I kind of jumped into the hardcore scene, metal hardcore scene at the time, um, there were the older bands. It wasn't, there was like the band Shai Hulud, Morning Again, Strong Arm, like all these the older guys.
Hmm.
And it was like young kids, and it was a very small sort of hardcore scene, and just kind of linked up, and we'd go to shows, and everybody kind of knew everybody, and mostly everybody got along, but kids from Fort Lauderdale, kids from Coral Springs, kids from Miami, and it was just kind of a somewhat of a tight knit scene, you know.
Hmm.
And obviously, I said Shai Hulud. That obviously sort of trails off to Newfound Glory.
Fun fact, Chad Gilbert co-founded Shai Hulud in 1995 and served as their vocalist and guitarist on the 1997 debut full-length Hearts Once Nourished with Hope and Compassion. He left the band that same year to co-found and become the lead guitarist for Newfound Glory.
And they were like the first band that kind of came out of that scene that like jumped and started actually doing like something significant. But that at the time it was like high school. Like I was in 10th, 11th grade when I started getting into hardcore. And around the time Newfound Glory, and then other bands like ourselves, Glass Eater, Destro, so on and so forth. So it was a very interesting, exciting time that I guess in a way, like this sort of the fact that I'm talking to you about Poison the Well 25, 26 years later, however long it's been,
Hmm.
very unexpected, just kind of like right place, right time, right sound, and just kind of happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, you started the band when you were what, 17, 18? So I mean, who's to say
17, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I would have told you back then, like, hey, people are gonna come see you play in 2025, what would your reaction been?
I would have actually probably felt relieved because the uncertainty of things, because life is always uncertain, who knows, but
Hmm.
we toured Europe, which was great, but we did a US tour, which is probably the biggest tour that we've ever done, and just all across all metrics, just the best. So yeah, like I'd be pretty pumped. I'd probably feel a sense of relief. Like, where's my future gonna go?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's also interesting too because I've said it on previous episodes. So when because I'm a little bit younger, so when you would listen to
Mhm.
bands and stuff like that, I just assumed because they were on the Orange County like artist list or whatever. If I heard like Less Than Jake, I just assumed it was a SoCal, ska band. Or because I
Yeah.
heard pop punk, I assumed Newfound Glory were, a SoCal pop punk band. Then learning like, oh no, Less Than Jake, that's Gainesville. And then you hear what is it? Was it Clearwater, Florida? I think Newfound Glory's
It's
from.
Cool Springs.
Yeah,
Cool Springs,
Coral
which is
Springs.
like, if you
Okay,
think of, so like Fort Lauderdale and Miami, Cool Springs is like north in Fort Lauderdale.
gotcha. Yeah, so like I wouldn't even have imagined that bands of that like magnitude would be coming out of Florida. Nothing against Florida, just that didn't really think about it. So it's just interesting to see what the scene was like and how you had ska, pop punk, and obviously Poison the Well with metalcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Um, moving on, man. How did you hear about Orange County, or when do you remember first seeing them?
I think obviously with most people it was Blink, because when did they really blew up? What was it, 96, 97, something like that?
I would have to say, probably when Tragic Kingdom came out, no doubt. I would say that's probably what really put them on the map. Or maybe even, was it the Blue Record from 311? I would say probably in that round.
Yeah, I guess I'm just speaking for myself because I was never like a really big No Doubt fan, though
Hmm.
I could remember just the girl video. I wasn't like, no disrespect to No Doubt, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with 311, like I remember when the Down single came out, like thinking about it now, like, oh yeah, I could remember the sort of the OCDP logo.
Hmm.
Um, but it was probably Blink, just because around that time I was definitely heavily into more pop punk, hardcore, going out of the sort of the 90s sort of alternative music, and you'd want to try to find something new and exciting. Because I remember seeing Blink at the second Warp Tour in '97, and the dude Scott was still playing drums.
Yeah, I think Travis joined 98. I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I remember seeing him at a very small club in Hollywood, Hallandale. I forget the name of the club, but I remember seeing them there. And he had the kit. He had whatever his sort of, I think is like the mishmash sort of jelly bean kit.
Yeah.
And then obviously they got, it was before they got giant because they were playing at that point. That club was easily like an 800 to like maybe 1,000 cap. It was before they really blew up. And obviously them blowing up and him being kind of more of a flashy drummer, he was really showcasing the ability of what the company could sort of do visually. And I think that was the first of like, oh, okay. Even though I listened to a little bit of pop punk, but it wasn't really fully my thing. It was like, oh, okay, cool. That's interesting, as just being a drummer and just sort of, I guess, looking at the landscape of stuff out there, of like, like I said, growing up with Pearl and DW and Tama. That's like, not that it's old man gear, but it's definitely of a particular time. When I think of
Yeah.
Tama, I think 70s. When I think of Pearl, I think Pearl 90s, DW, I think like 80s, 90s. But, Orange County was like, this is like, no, late 90s, early 2000s, sort of the new thing,
Yeah, like the new It. And yeah,
basically.
I think it was definitely no doubt 311 like put Orange County on the map, but I always say that the Ringo effect, I always call it Enema of the State 1999 when that came out.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that took Orange County from just, an underground name to mainstream where like you said it was the it factor. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. And I'm
Yeah.
also very envious and jealous. You probably saw them touring still Dude Ranch when Travis joined.
Yeah. So I don't remember when I saw him with Scott at Warped Tour. I think that was maybe Cheshire Cat, possibly, or like Cheshire Cat, maybe on the edge of Dude Ranch. No, no, sorry. I saw him at Warped Tour. It was probably Dude Ranch because the dude Scott played on Dude Ranch,
Yeah.
and then it was probably that transition of like the small club to that was, and when Travis joined was, I'm sure they were writing songs and probably getting ready to, they did their big deal and all that sort of stuff. That shit takes time, so I
Yeah.
don't remember anything about it. I just remember going to the show and there's just a ton of people there and them playing, and yeah, I don't remember. I don't really remember much. I think Suicide Machines were opening up for
Oh
them,
wow.
if I remember correctly. I'd have to, don't quote me on that, but I think I went to go see them because their drummer Derek is he went obviously from Suicide Machines to play
Mhm.
with Alkaline Trio forever. Um, but in Suicide Machines, he was just as a young drummer, he was just a master.
Don't quote me on it, but I heard a story that Derek, when he actually tried out for Suicide Machines, they originally thought he was going to play guitar, not drums. I want to
I've
see if
heard
I
that.
could.
I've heard he can play everything.
Yeah,
He's
I
just
didn't
like
know
one of
that.
those guys.
Yeah, which is also super cool, especially if you think Alkaline Trio, it's only three dudes. So obviously, if you can play everything, definitely helps. But yeah, I heard that story that he showed up to like audition or playing, like, oh, cool. So you got the songs down? He's like, yeah. And he's like sat behind the kit. They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like we don't, guitar players with Diamond doesn't like why don't you play drums?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. I think it was with Suicide Machines opening. No, wait. I'm getting a few shows mixed up because I saw Descendants at that same club. Probably wasn't. It was probably Suicide Machines Descendants. That feels a little bit more like it makes a little bit. Doesn't matter.
I was
Let's
just
not
saying,
let's
you
not,
get a
not get
pass.
bogged down.
We're making you
Get
time
bogged down.
travel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. but yeah, so it was back to what you were sort of originally talking about. It was the Ringo effect, 100% Ringo effect with Orange County. Yeah, and like I said, I just love the fact that like, oh, they can do whatever I want, and not that I wanted wild shit, but like I said, it's to me everything about music and drums and all that stuff. It's not about the like, hey, look at me. It's all the subtleties of the details of like what goes into playing drums or building a drum kit. It's the subtle details, and I don't know, that's what I really liked about Orange County drums.
No, same. And I also just like that you were able to actually put a put a part of your personality into the kit and your style and your own flair. Um,
Yeah.
whether you wanted to be a front man or not, it's like you could stand out on stage and still be behind the kit.
Yeah, I mean, I was never really a flashy dude, so like that really wasn't my bag. But if you wanted to be that guy in your band, you were the focus, like a Travis type character, then it worked for you.
Yeah.
They could basically do whatever the fuck you want, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. So how did you actually like get connected with Orange County? Do you remember who was like your contact there, or did somebody approach you?
So it was through Josh, and so basically, with I'll give you like a little quick backstory.
Yeah, go for it.
It's Boys Mall, high school. Put out an EP, then put out our first record opposite of December, and that kind of just started doing this for us. So the moment that I got out of high school, I mean I was touring in high school, but like that's I foregoed college, university, and started touring. Anyways, in the sort of year or so of touring, we eventually came across an individual named Bill Fold, is a current friend of the band, but at the time was interested in managing us. Bill had an association with Aquabats when Travis was still playing. And Bill and Travis lived together in Riverside at a place that eventually, like our guitar player Ryan and singer Jeff, were renting from our manager. So when it kind of came time to like, hey, well, you guys are really going to do this, we had major label interest, endorsements. Like, it was just the sort of, I wouldn't say that it happens the same way now, but like, 24 or 5 years ago or whatever, you started kind of like, well, what do you guys want? And, it's like, oh, well, what are the options, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, hey, I know that Travis, could you get a hookup with Orange County Drum? And it was through Josh. And initially I've heard what he told me, what Bill had told me was they just weren't interested in me because I guess it was before metal hardcore had really taken off, and they had their lane, right?
Mhm.
They had Travis, they had pop punk, they had No Doubt, which is punk infused ska pop. Like, I don't think that they really had veered into sort of the heavy world at that point too much. Um, I don't quote me, but I think I was probably one of the first dudes of metal hardcore that like had been endorsed by the company. So initially they weren't that interested, and I think that it just took a little finagling, a little bit of like, well, check this out, check this out. They just signed this. It's, the sort of having to show that there's actually something happening with the band. And eventually they were like, okay, cool, we're got it, we're into it, cool. And then I remember I had bought a 20 ply, like 1 1/4, like the small vented snare drum with a Bermuda sand wrap on it.
Mhm.
And we played a show at the Glass House, and Josh showed up, and I met him. He was nice, super cool, and it was like, here you go.
Yeah, no, I definitely would. I've said it before. I definitely credit you for taking that Orange County sound and putting it to metalcore and harder styles of music. I mean, at the time, I would say the only person or artist wise that would be considered heavy would probably be John Otto, and that new metal's its own thing.
Different
But
lane.
yeah, I was gonna say that's its own thing. But I credit
Yeah.
you because then I remember seeing you on the artist roster, and then that's when I started seeing like Riley from Thrice. Then I saw Dan Trapp, and you're like, oh, like there's other things going on here. I think it was Hope's Fall as well. Like so many other bands that just I feel like it just opened the window for them. That Orange County was like, oh yeah, we can sign other dudes as well.
I think they saw potential more in that lane
Yeah.
because it's like the reality is if we're gonna like endorsements are equal, should in theory should be equal trade-offs, right?
Hmm.
We give you this at a discount, or we give this to you for free. You go out there and then you're marketing and you're selling it to people. And I think it just took them a moment to realize that there's potential in the heavier market, because it's like, well, why are we going to give this guy a discount? Because that's typically how it starts with OC. Why would we guys give this guy a discount if this, style of music they're playing VFW halls and
Yeah.
bars, and
Yeah.
it's before it really like kind of took that step, I guess, the first wave, because there was like 2000 with us, and like Thursday and Thrice was like that sort of first wave of like, not full on heavy, because I wouldn't consider Thrice at the time like as heavy as they are now, or Thursday, but it was just kind of like the overall arching, that scene, that scene is like the, you consider like emo and hardcore and that sort of stuff, like it started actually taking off and started doing something.
Oh yeah, totally. Definitely pioneer in that sense, man. And I was trying to say, I think it was alternative press. That's when I knew like things were starting to change. Is like back, when you used to subscribe to magazines. People forget this. Alternative press, you could like flip the pages, and they would give you. Sometimes they would have like the little CDs in there where it would have like six, depending on like whatever label. I think it was it Trustkill or something? So I think that was the label, and they always had like just here's essentially like six songs on it, and you could listen to whoever was on it. I think there was another one for like Victory back in the day. That's how I found like Hawthorne Heights. But yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that, and I'm like, oh okay, so kind of the tides are shifting. It's no longer just pop punk is cool and all, but I feel like that was when Blink-182 started to phase out, and more of the heavier screamo and emo stuff started to come into play.
Yeah, that, like, I want to say first wave, because there's been multiple waves of this
Hmm.
particular music. It's just, we just so happen to be on like the cusp of that particular wave, and there's been more bands that come out, which is wild, because Poison Well has been mildly active since 2015, but we became more of a serious active band, let's just say the past 2 years. And I had not realized, because I'd kind of been out of the loop a little bit. Like, I've been playing, I did Census Fell for a little bit. I was playing with George Harrison's kid, Danny Harrison, and was playing with Greg Puciato, Dillinger Escape Plan, and Better Lovers, Alice in Chains, doing the solo stuff. So I haven't really been interacting so much in heavy metal hardcore. Come to realize, bands are filling up arenas.
Oh yeah.
Like, I came back and I was just like, oh, like, where have I, like, not that I thought it went away, it just wasn't on my radar, because when we were playing that way, because obviously it's a few generations removed, but when we started, it was like, yo, if you filled up like a large theater, that was great. Or if you got an opening slot or like a main support slot on like a huge tour, that was great. Like, the idea, like, I know bands like Spirit Box, like Bring Me the Horizon, like Architects, like, they're fucking, it's just wild. I guess I just hadn't realized the how long this type of music would go for. Was it be a flash in the pan, or is there some like actual legs to it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, in regards to the to Orange County, man, did you ever actually visit
Hmm.
the shop?
Oh yeah, multiple times. Yeah,
We heard a little
yeah,
rumor too that you actually may have worked there, or in your time off may have helped assemble some kits.
yeah. No, I did. So there was like a weird period of time from about 2004 to 2006 where like the band, one of the main guys had left the band, and we like, I don't want to say broke up, but we're like restructuring, right? And I didn't really have shit to do, and I had just moved to California at that time, and I don't know how it happened, but I was just like, hey, like, you guys have a job? Because I needed something to bide my, basically something to bide my fucking time, because we were trying to figure it out and get the band moving again. And I forgot how long I worked there, maybe about a year or so, like maybe 6 months to a year. But that's where I met Jeremy Berman and like Max Kazor and like Dean and like a bunch of people like John, Dolphin Shorts, the dude
John
John.
Machado, yeah.
Yeah, his nickname was Dolphin Shorts because he just wore like the most ridiculous 80 and he like 80s style shorts and had like a long mullet, and met Daniel and all these people there. And yeah, it was just kind of like my way to sort of like, well, I don't have shit going on, and I like drums, and I think I went and hung out, or I went to go pick up a kit there, and everybody was just really cool. Like Max was cool, Jeremy was cool, Dean was super cool. And like, oh, these like dudes like me, but they're building these drums. That's crazy, you know. Like I'm just kind of broke down with them. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I built anything. Like I never got to a level in which, you know, I'm measuring off, I'm wrapping kits, I'm edging or anything like that. But like, you know, I could put a mean sanding on like an acrylic edge, you know, like I could assemble a kit. Like I kind of could sort of do that, but and then eventually the band kind of started picking up again, and I was like, well, this doesn't really make sense, you know, and it was time to move on. But that's kind of where I kind of had met everybody, and you know, sort of became a little bit more part of the family, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here laughing because it's like we had the builders on. They're like, "Yeah, I built that kit for Travis. I built that," and then you're like, "Yeah, man, I sanded that little bit right there. You see that edge? Like I sanded that."
Well, this is the thing. It was like it was it's not meant this is not meant to sound disrespectful at all, but it wasn't the long-term strategy for me. You know, it was
Yeah.
just kind of like this is cool and I like this and this place is rad and these people are cool and it's like a way to like build camaraderie and like build like a better relationship with the company and blah 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 blah. But like ultimately, like I just didn't really see myself building drums, and it's not meant to be disrespectful. It just wasn't like a passion for me. Even though
No, I
now
see
in my
that. Yeah.
40s, I kind of wish I would have picked up certain things because of like, oh, I need to re-edge this. I could just do it myself instead of having to outsource it, or like, oh, I know how to mark off a drum. So if I, it's hindsight's always 2020. I kind of wish I had picked up some stuff from there, you know, because it's
No, I get that.
like I have a few Q kits because I used to be a Q guy before, you know,
Hmm.
rest in peace, Jeremy Berman. Um, and now it's like, well, what happens if I need a kit rewrapped, or what if happens if I need, you know, edges redone? Like I don't really have the ability to do that, so now I have to find somebody because Jeremy was my guy forever.
Hmm.
When I needed something done on something, he would he would do it. Or when Max was working at Q, he would, you know, I brought some like old Ludwig concert toms and I re-edged them and then they sounded amazing. You know, it's like I don't, you know, don't really necessarily have that resource, but I wish I just would have learned.
No, it just I get that. Like you seem like you were just more obviously more focused on your playing career. Again, from interviewing people, some of them were, you know, like, what are you doing? I think it was we interviewed this guy, Charles Wiley. He was like, yeah, I was working there. Obviously, I needed a job, and I'm a drummer, so it'd be cool to be working with drums. But it got to a point where it's like I wanted to focus on playing, not building. And then some
Yeah,
guys like Max and Jeremy like lived and died by, building drums. Like that was the passion. So.
they were exceptional. That's also the thing too. Like those guys were real exceptional with woodworking. You know, especially Jeremy. There was a lot of things that he kind of did, and obviously no disrespect to Max. Max, in his own right, had, you know, he had built a few kits for me, and his like craftsmanship is like second to none. You know, but with Jeremy, there was a lot of things that he started at Orange County Drum that he eventually brought over to Q. Because there was the original, they would do like the Black Beauty snares, and they would get rid of they would order the shells, but then they'd cut off the rounded, you know, the
The rolled
round
edge,
edge,
yeah.
yeah, rolled edge, and then they would put in the wood rings. Like I remember getting a snare drum from them like 2006 with that, and that became his sort of thing with Q drum when he was doing the metal drums. He would put those in on the toms and the kick, and they sound phenomenal. I've recorded a bunch of records. I have a steel kit over here that has a wood rings, but that was something that was originally a concept that he came up with at Orange County.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's one of those things. It was just hard, and then it's just like, oh, those guys are really great. And then he eventually started working with Nine Inch Nails, so he bounced. So for me, it was like, I want to focus on the career, and like they're already good. They already have two phenomenal dudes. Like I wasn't that passionate about it. Where like Max and Jeremy are passionate, and you can't really. It just didn't really make sense for me. It's like these guys are just, you know, they'll run circles around me forever, basically.
No, right on. Also, you kind of wanted to save your hands a little bit, right? Like, hey, I can't pick up the stick because my hand fell on the router. Whoops.
Not trying to chop a finger off,
I
that
mean,
would be bad.
I've done that. Whoops. So, speaking of your Orange County drums, though, do you remember what your first kit was? I know you earlier you'd mentioned your first snare was the Bermuda Sand with like the 1 inch
Yeah,
vents, and it was a 20
yeah.
ply. But what was your first kit?
So my first kit was so this is before my deal with Orange County. I think this also probably made it easier for them to be like, oh yeah, we'll let them on board because so the story, the non-point drum kit, like a red stain maple. It was like a 22 by 24 kick drum, something silly, and then the
No such thing.
12 by 14. Yeah, no, right. Uh, 14 by 16 and 16 by 18. And there was a dude, his name is John Spano. I don't remember the band he plays in, so if he watches this, I'm sorry, dude.
No, I was
But
gonna say
essentially,
this is where I tell my my producer to do the Joe
like,
Rogan thing. Yo,
slice it.
go find that
Yeah,
shit, dude.
yeah, yeah,
Look
yeah,
that
yeah.
up.
I forget their name, but anyways, he had the kit, and I saw it, and I was like, "Holy! Would you sell that to me, or would you do a sell and a trade?" Because I had a Spawn kit at the time that I was just kind of over, and I was like, "Oh, I remember what it was: the Spawn kit and like $1,000." And he was like, "Yeah, cool." Boom, got the kit. What am I gonna do with a fucking 12 by 14 rack tom? I brought it to this in South Florida. There was like there's two places that sold drums, but there was one spot that was specifically for drums. It was
Hmm.
called Resurrection Drums,
Oh, I know what
and
you're
they
talking
had
about.
their
Yeah,
own brand. Dude, they had their own brand called Kill on Command.
I do remember
If I
this.
remember correctly.
Remember the
It's
days
a
of the
it's
Pearl Drummers Forum? I remember seeing it on there back in the day.
such a hostile and aggressive name for your drum company. Anyways, I brought it to them and I was like, "Hey, can you cut this down to like a fucking 12 by 8, something like some fucking reasonable size?" And they did. And that was my first touring kit from like how long did I have that for? I probably had that for like a year and a half because I used bits and pieces. I used the toms on our record "You Come Before You." So that record, there's a few bits and pieces. So we don't have to go down this road right away for studio stuff, but that was a kit. Yeah. So it was like a kind of red magenta-ish stain. Yeah, with two oversized fucking floor toms. I'm pretty sure an oversized kick drum, but it was all the rage when you had the cannon kicks and all that. But yeah, it was the first kit, and then I got the snare drum, and then yeah, that was I actually have no idea what happened to that drum set. I probably sold it, but I have no recollection of selling it.
Interesting. Not to be a creeper, but that Spawn kit that you mentioned, was it like a natural stain kit?
Yep.
Yep. All right, cool. I remember. Not creepy at all,
Yep.
right?
Hey man, your
No,
thing.
I know my thing. Yeah.
You're passionate about what you do. The fact that you know that is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because
And
if
then
I forgot and you told me that, it would have been like, oh yeah, that. Oh yeah, that.
there's been a few instances where they're like, "What size is that?" I'm like, "No, you were playing a 22 by 19." I also used to, tech here and there, So you kind of that's your thing, you kind of got to know the sizes better than like, your drummer points to you. He's like, "I don't know. Ask my tech. What size is that?" And you're like, "Ah, it's a 12 by 9." Like you just
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of got to
yeah,
know. But
yeah.
yeah, I remember the Spawn kit. That red kit with the stain. Did it have tube lugs on it?
No, it had the old box lugs.
Okay, because then yeah, I know later you had another kit that had it was like a red to black, I think, stain that you might have had that had tube lugs and like dual air vents, if I'm not mistaken.
I was probably like out of the wood kits because I had two acrylic kits and I had multiple wood kits. That the stain one, that was my favorite wood kit out of all the ones that I had gotten through Orange County, which wasn't much. It was like I had gotten 5 kits from Orange County, and that was like the last one before I made the transition to acrylic.
Gotcha.
And that was a shop like combined effort. Like I went to like Jeremy, Max, Dean, like all these dudes that were there, and like, hey, I'm gonna do this, and it was like a full like bro sort of, you know, them collaborating, me asking them like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Blah 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 blah. And that's kind of what we sort of like. I told them what I wanted, and they suggested certain things, and so on and so forth. And that's that kit that you're speaking of. that was probably my favorite wood kit. But no, it's a different one than the one I'm talking
Gotcha.
about.
Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, like, you had such influential designs. Like, who played a part in that? That was all you're doing? But now we just learned it was a collaborative effort, and it was, you know, somebody might have had an
That
idea.
one
Yeah, go on.
that one was yeah, that one was collaborative. All the other ones, I mean, I always think of my other kits are fucking basic. Like the one before that was just a black stain because like I just didn't want to wrap because at the time the wrap was kind of like affecting the sound, you know. So
Hmm.
I was like, oh, let me just start doing natural stains and like, oh, this works better for like what I'm hearing in my head and what our live engineer wants and so on and so forth.
Gotcha. So I'm just trying to put these in order. So we have your first snare. The first kit was the oversized toms. The second kit was that the red one, the red stain with the Baltimore lugs, the square lugs, and then what would the third kit been?
Okay, so first kit was the oversized one that got cut down.
Gotcha.
Second one was a black wrap kit that when we had gotten advance money from Atlantic, I had purchased that kit, and it was super basic. I think it had box lugs. I think they were like 50% offset, similar sizes, 12 by 8. I think 14 by 14, 16 by 16, a 22 by 20 kick, something, I think something in that range.
Mhm.
Very basic, nothing crazy, just something to tour and, whatever. And then the one I had gotten after that, I was like, I'm going to get adventurous and I'm going to fucking put, I'm going to go out a little bit more. And it was a silver sparkle with black powder coated rims and blue lugs that were like slightly offset from one another.
7/8, yeah.
Yeah, 7/8. And then the one after that was just like that was like a little too much for me because it's just not kind of my thing. Like that's a little too out there. And I went back to sort of the black stain with the tube lugs, and they were 50. And then the fade kit was the wood kit because after that I had gotten two acrylic kits. That wood kit was the sort of final like like the
Mhm.
wood
Gotcha.
drums of like, okay, like I've had all these kits, I know what I like, I know what I don't want. I didn't like that at the time. I didn't really like the new lugs. Now I like them. I think they're awesome. Not new lugs, but
It
the tooth lug.
hit, yeah, the shark tooth. It hit or miss, man. It's a vibe. It depends on the kits. Sometimes it looks cool, and other times I'm like, the tubes would have been cooler, or it depends, the vibe.
Yeah, yeah, basically. So yeah, I wasn't into those, and I wanted to try something different. So, anyways, long story short, the sort of collaborative fifth kit, the fade one, that was just sort of like, okay, this feels right. These sizes feel right. Bigger drums, 16, 18, 24 kick, 13 rack. It was starting to get in the bigger realm of drums. Um, and then yeah, that was that. And then after that, I had gotten a few like acrylic kits, like a Coke bottle kit with like 13, 16, 18, 26 kick. And then the final kit before I had left Orange County was a clear acrylic, and it was 13, 16, 18, and then yeah, 24 kick, but not as deep. I started kind of 24s sound really incredible at like a 14-inch depth for like recording and live and all that sort of stuff. And I just kind of stumbled upon like less cannony, more sort of compact. And I was like, oh, this actually sounds phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
don't need the Canon, because every time I'd go in the studio, the Canon would get axed for something that was a little bit less. So it worked great live. It just wasn't really something that
Yeah.
was studio sort of. Engineers hated the long. Maybe not all, just the ones that I worked with weren't fans of the depth.
Yeah, I mean, live, it's one of those things, it's a look. So obviously, it's like, yeah, it's cool to have the really long kick drums, but studio, maybe not so friendly. I was just more curious, like, with the vented snare sound, we said earlier talking to Dan Trapp about it, it just like it does one thing and it does one thing well. So how would that
Yep.
translate to, versatility on a record? Because obviously sometimes when you're making a record, hey, we might use this DW kick with a Slingerland floor tom and a Rogers rack tom, and then swap
Yeah.
out the snares. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I was just curious, what was his Steve Evans, what was his take on the snare sounds?
He likes really big, fat, low stuff. So the high pitched sort of crack really wasn't his bag. Like he would be like, okay, well, if there's a moment, there's a section in the song that requires that, then he would be like open to it. but for the most part, he was like he kind of knew what worked and what made the most sense for the song. And it
Nice.
wasn't really something that he would lean into too much. He was like, "Hey, I got this pork pie, fucking Black Beauty, or I have this Ludwig brass snare drum," or like he was kind of that was sort of his zone of sound. Um, but like I said, if we did something and it required that thing in a section, he would be, he'd be really open to it. Actually, no, I slightly take. Sorry, I'm trying to.
I know. It's like we're
I did Tom overdubs at his studio, his old studio in Garden Grove, and I think it was in Orange County Maple Toms that I did some Tom stuff.
but
Anyways, yeah,
yeah, it's also interesting, we've heard Jerry Finn was not a fan of the vented snare sound, and Travis, and tuning them super high and getting that like marching band almost tabletop feel, wasn't a fan of
yeah,
them. But then you look at like Terry Date would dial in, the Limp Bizkit and the Stain stuff, and now it's like I can't picture that records or that song or anything like that without that snare sound. So it's kind of funny how, some producers were for it and others weren't.
Well, what's really funny is I feel like the quintessential like heavy but like accessible Orange County sound would be like Abe from Deftones,
Oh
because he
yeah.
was like an early Orange County guy. Then he moved to Tama, but he had a signature snare drum that he put out that had vents in it. I
Hmm.
don't know if you know that, but if you can search on
Yeah.
Reverb it, there's like one I think up
One
for sale for
literally
like three.
just sold today. It was like 3 grand. I saw it yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, it's sold.
Yeah, dude,
Oh,
I thought I was crazy. It was like yeah, it was like 3 grand. It was marked down. But yeah, it's funny. If somebody is to ask me describe a vented snare sound, all I say is white noting. Like 9 times out of 10. Just if you want to know what like an actual representation of what a vented snare is, just put on anything like that, and there you go.
what's crazy though is I don't know if he used one on the entire record. I think he may have used a '90s Tama Bell brass. He just can crank the shit out of it.
Or did the
But
Kevlar head thing, I think, right?
yeah, I think he may have done the Kevlar head thing, and that's not to say that he didn't use it on some stuff,
Hmm.
or even like around the fur, like My Own Summer, that bop, that
Oh
high
yeah,
pitch. That may have been an Orange County
I think
snare
so
drum.
too.
Yeah,
That's something like you gotta like get Daniel or Abe himself on here to actually like pick their brain to see what's up. But obviously,
yeah,
it resonated with him enough that his Tama, he's still seeking that vented snare sound.
yeah. I mean, you have a signature snare drum, and you're like, I want I want it to make the one sound, but I don't want it to be wood. I want it to be metal, and I want you to put the holes in it. But it's part of his thing. He has a sound. He has a fantastic pocket,
Oh
but he
yeah.
has a very specific drum sound, and that regardless if it's a Tama or whatever, it was clearly influenced by the fucking vintage snare drum. Clear,
Oh,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you could see that with like, there's tons of drums I'll see out there where I'm like, I wonder where they got that idea from, or you could tell where the inspiration started. But
Yeah,
moving on to some of the live stuff, man. Do you remember what your first tour was that you used Orange County on? And as far as that tour, do you remember how the drums held up?
I'm trying to remember. It was probably in between us touring on Terror from the Red and You Come Before You, because that's when I did the swap and the natural kit for the for the red kit. Um, they held up well. The one thing, it was at the time I wanted wrapped kits because I was noticing that the red kit, because it was a red stain, it was getting beat up.
Hmm.
Um, but for the most part, it held pretty well. They sounded really good. I mean, enough to where the toms made it on a record in the studio. But it was mostly just touring as like at that time like a 19, 20, 21 year old, 22-year old fucking kid, not knowing how to take care of my gear how I do now when I do stuff, or you have a tech that knows how to take care of the shit and that sort of stuff. So I remember they held up well, with the exception of it just getting beat up because it wasn't a wrap, and them sounding pretty good.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is I'm sure you're aware of this, the lug snapping on this vented snares, or most of the snares, the Baltimore square lug. I wasn't sure
Yeah,
what it was like of those snapping. How did you get replacement parts? Did you have to call Josh and be like, "Hey man, another few snaps. Can you send me 10 more?"
I definitely remember a few of them snapping on that Bermuda sand, 20 ply, 14 by 6.5 with the small vents. This is a photo from that
Yeah.
session. It's backwards, but
Yeah.
that is that's the rack tom, and that's the kick that I was describing before. But I used to have a ton of these fucking photos because we had a friend come and take photos and all that,
Hmm.
and the hard drive crashed. So
Oh,
I need, and it's an older, it's not like a solid state one. So like at some point I just got to pony up the cash and go to somebody and be like, hey, take these, and if whatever you could pull off
whatever you
here
can
and put
salvage.
on.
Yeah.
But there'd be a ton of photos from that session with like all the drums, like the double chamber snare drum. That one was this one. I could try to find this one and send it to you. But this one I'll kind of try to zoom in on it. That's
Yeah.
the
That's the
14 by 7 30 ply
yeah.
30
I
ply with
see it.
big
Yeah.
bend.
That's
And
so
that was
rad.
used on one song. That was a pinstripe Remo coated pinstripe head, ambassador bottom.
Yeah. Old
Remembering
Nickelworks
now, it
throw
was
off
used on,
too.
yeah, it was that one, and it was used on one song, and it worked perfectly. It was
Oh,
that
that's sick.
sound, back to kind of what we're talking about. It
Hmm.
that the big holes with the big plot. It worked for one song, and it sounded awesome.
So you know what's rad about that kick drum in that photo? So that was at the 28, right?
No, 24.
24. So there is a 28. If you look up, I believe it's Boxcar Racer Live for Letterman, Travis is playing There Is, where it's just a snare drum and a kick drum. That's the
Mhm.
28-inch Purple Riff kick drum everybody always asks
Dude,
about.
that thing has made its way on so many fucking records.
Right? I
So
don't,
many records.
I need to know where that is. I think Daniel probably still has it in a collection or hiding somewhere because that thing, if that thing could talk.
I know the story behind this, and it's not a good story.
Oh,
So Jeremy Berman had it. He had it in the storage unit. That storage unit got fucking broken into, and
ah.
that kick got taken.
The only perk to that is it's such a big size and a unique finish where if it ever surfaces, there wouldn't be a doubt
A,
to what it is.
AKA ugly as finish.
Oh yeah, no, dude, it's literally it's literally like a 90s countertop, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like if you go in a shitty rental apartment that you when you get out
Yeah,
of high school, and that's like the countertop, and
yeah.
that's what it was. They were like, "Oh, we just put Formica on a
That's
drum," and I was like, "Oh,
yeah. Most of their finishes were. It was like hilarious, and it's like, dude, like it's such a unique finish. I'm like, no, this is literally the countertop that they got at the bargain bin because nobody wants that even in their kitchen. But
pretty
it
much."
works. But
But
oh man, it's a sad
if you
story.
do, if you see that thing eventually pop up on eBay or pop up again on Reverb or whatever, that's the story behind that. He told me that because I forget how it came up, but he was like, "Yeah, I had a bunch of shit stolen from there." He's like, "I had a surfboard, a bike, I had the Purple Riff OC kick drum taken as well, the 28." It's like, "Oh man, that's a bummer," because I
Man,
just knew I knew the history. I know that apparently that kick drum was also used on Adam's song on the Blink record
I
as
heard
well.
that. What was the other? I mean,
That
used on Boxcar. What was the other?
we
Trying to
used it
remember.
on that "You Come Before You" record. We used it on the song "Meeting Again" for the first time. But to past that, it's like he told me all this. I think it was used on Nine Inch Nails with Teeth.
Hmm,
Pretty sure. Yes, I'm actually positive of that. There's songs on the Nine Inch Nails with Teeth record, the one that Grohl played on.
gotcha,
Grohl and Jerome Dillon. I think the Jerome Dillon songs have that kick drum.
dude. All right,
Yeah.
I'm on a mission now. I know what I need to find.
I mean, if you could talk to Daniel, Daniel might know. Max might know. He might have some insight of like, because they would just, you would call and you're like, "Hey, I need some drums," and like, "Yeah, show up." I'm sure fucking Max had handed off that kick drum to people. Daniel wasn't there that much, so Daniel might know. He'll know all the Travis shit,
Hmm.
but like the day to day of like everybody else, you know, barring that kick drum, Max would have a better idea. Dean might know it too. Have you
Oh yeah,
interviewed
we
Dean
spoke to
Cooper?
Dean. I give it's funny. Dean and I've been talking to Dean off and on through the years, just sending each other really messed up memes on Instagram. But it's funny
Yeah,
after talking to Dean on here, I was shooting the shit with him, and he's like, "Oh yeah," because obviously we were talking about you. I'm like, "Yeah, I would love to have Chris on, trying to get a hold of him." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I mean, like he worked there too." And I'm like, "Bro, you waited
yeah,
this long to fucking tell me that?"
yeah. Worked.
Yeah, Dean's the
But
man though.
assembled
Dean's
some
awesome.
shit and yeah, no, Dean's a great dude. Um, He might know too. Back to the
Yeah.
kick thing. He might know as well because he may have just showed, somebody fucking, this dude from this band or this dude from that band shows up and like, hey, what about that thing, But I know it has a history.
Yeah, and a lot of the drums too, like Josh Lamb was like, "Oh, if you see Cyrus playing live, Jimmy Kimmel, like that was my personal kit." Or if you see Cyrus playing here, that was another one of my kits. Or sometimes just things would get loaned out, whatever they needed, and it's like wild to think like, "Oh yeah, just take my personal kit."
Funny that you say that. I had forgotten about this. Max let me borrow a kit, his kit, which is like kind of like a natural tobacco stain for our video for the song called Letter Thing, which
Was
is
it
more like
13,
narrative.
16, 18, 24 by 20, and he sold it on Reverb, and I almost bought it. I know exactly what kit you're talking about.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that kit was used. Yeah, I used it on, on that video.
So like a lot of Max's snares, like I think he went on a purge when he was starting to work with Q again. So I was fortunate enough I bought a good portion of his snare drums, but I couldn't get that kit. Was tapped out
Yeah.
at that point. But
Sure, it's pricey. How much do you know how much it went for?
1800. I have I'm like Rain
That's
Man,
not
dude. I have like a photographic memory. I can tell you where I saw things, how much they were, and yeah, I remember that kit. It had tube lugs. It was a sick kit.
It was cool. Yeah, it's cool. That's actually not too bad because that, remember the kit I told you, the faded kit and 24 blah blah blah, that guy
Yeah.
with the two bucks. I sold that kit when Orange County, before the whole resurgence. I I was trying to sell it. I think probably like maybe 18 to 2 grand. Got rid of it for like 1,100 bucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's so when I started, I literally, when I started collecting these, this was probably like 2011, 2012. Like nobody really kind of gave a shit at this point, you know? And
That was the
SJC,
time I got rid of that kit. It's
yeah.
fucking, it hurts because if I would have held on to it,
Yeah.
it probably would, not a ton more, but it would be a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's one of those like, dude, I was seeing like 20, 30, 40 plies used for sale on Guitar Center for like 200, 250. Or like when I used to do tours, I would take per diem and like on my days off I was bored, so I would either find the a pawn shop, music shop, Guitar Center, find something, literally just ship it back to myself. Dude, I was finding like we're talking full on kits, 400 or 500 bucks easily.
The problem is I think that their Guitar Center deal and like the influx of like those the China kits, I think that it really diluted the market and people really couldn't tell the difference between what was like custom shop that had a history and what was just manufactured in China. Some stuff was obvious, like they did the
Mhm.
vented snare drum, but it was like a piece of metal with like a bazillion holes that had like the claw lug, but it was a smaller claw lug,
Yeah,
you
so
know?
it's like a variation of it. Like you could tell. I mean, the real enthusiast could tell, but
That's what I'm saying. Like if you were just some random person, that wouldn't really, you just be like, oh, okay. But like, yeah, even now I can tell if something pops up if it doesn't have like the 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 screws on the inside, if it's not that
the
specific,
stainless
like,
steel, yeah.
yeah, I could tell. You could tell with throw offs. You could tell with the air vent as well. Like there's like subtle things that like I'll see. But point is, I think that the China kits to your average person, they're like, why would I spend like 2 or 3 grand when I could spend like 1,500 bucks? I think it really diluted the market. I think that it was passe at some point. Like obviously it's come back, but
Mhm.
it was passe, so people weren't buying them. So it's just the values just fucking took a shit.
Yeah, also like some of the things that I was buying, they were like either catalogs, like that there were drums that were on catalogs, or they were just really, really too flashy where it's either you loved it or hate it. There wasn't any wiggle room. And I don't think
Yeah,
people
yeah,
understood like the rarity of what it was. So I could just snag them for, a couple $100 and then come to find out it was something like, oh man, like when I bought a kit from Robbie Gonzalez, I didn't actually buy it from Robbie. I got it from somebody else in a trade, but they bought it. It's like super cheap, not realizing like that's a kit that like Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins played on. And now
yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, I won't sell it, but I'm sure it's just one of those, you're not realizing it at the time, the value of it. But I was like, yeah, I'll take it in a trade. No worries. And then actually, ironically, I almost rewrapped it.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's a stain one. It's like the
Yeah.
tobacco.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've
It has
seen
a
photos.
26, but it's got a hole in the kick drum.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
in the shell itself.
Yeah, and the shell itself, yeah. And like
Huh.
learning it now what it is, I'm like, well, I don't know who caused it, but I'm gonna leave it. So it sounds fine. I just left it. It hasn't gotten any bigger. But
I've seen Dave. I've seen a photo of Dave at the studio that they tracked in playing that kit. So it is
yeah.
authentic.
Yeah,
Like
it's
the
a
Dave.
Jubilee session and it's Taylor's on it too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
now, again, like history on these things. That's why I started buying some of these, just because I knew, like, looking at it, I'm like, or even sometimes people didn't know what it was, and I'm like, oh, I know who that used to belong to, and I'll go and snag it, and then later someone's like, how did you end up with that? I'm like, if only you knew, man. But
Only if you knew.
yeah. Speaking of the Guitar Center stuff, what was your take? Did anybody talk to you about that? That they did you have any inklings of the sale ready to happen or?
So from what I could remember, like the builders weren't very stoked. Like because they would just, if I remember correctly, it was like it was gonna, they could tell that it was gonna be sort of a decrease in quality. Whereas I think the owners saw it obviously from a very different perspective, you know?
Mhm.
That's really the only thing I could remember about that whole particular thing was that, yeah, like
Yeah,
Max and Jeremy, like they were not stoked on it at all. But like obviously Daniel and John and Adrian were probably like, well, yeah, this is obviously a move, big companies picking this up, blah, 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 you know. But
mhm.
if I understood correctly, too, the finances at Orange County Drum were not the best. So it almost seemed like it was inevitable that that was going to happen, because it's like, well, they couldn't sustain themselves where they were at. And take this with a grain of salt. This is sort of anecdotal information said to me by builders, not like Daniel coming to me and saying anything,
Gotcha.
or John or any, but obviously that's kind of what happened, because eventually they went under. Jeremy was building. I know Jeremy was building a lot of Travis's kits when Travis was still doing Orange County Drum, but like they weren't like a thing. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's also it was so unfortunately like again, growing up, I it's my age bracket. It was like an unattainable thing. The kits were just way too much and trying to convince your parents to like, "Hey, buy me this like $5,000 kit," you know what I mean? Like yellow and black, like it's super cool. Like, yeah, okay. You see
Yeah,
it in Guitar Center now. You're like, "Wow, I can't afford it." Like I always kind of not to shit on Guitar Center too much, but like I used to laugh like Guitar Center was a place where it had everything that I could never afford, and then it got to the place where it's like I can afford everything, but I don't want any of this. And it was
yeah.
like now you see those kits in there, it's like I can get this, but it's not really Orange County anymore.
That's kind of what it is. Like to me, Orange County is just like the place in Santa Ana that like the fucking where people were like Jeremy and Max and like all those dudes built out of. That to me is Orange County. Like any of the fucking the shit from China and like that's not. Yeah, that's just not it to me.
Yeah, it doesn't
Out of
represent.
curiosity though,
Yeah.
are those recreations in the back, or are those actually Travis's stuff?
No, if they were Travis's things, I probably wouldn't put them on camera. So these are
Or
all
you'd insure, the shit out of them.
yeah. Oh, I've been like nervous about like I have that thing where I don't put all my eggs in one basket. I don't even think my producer knows all of the drums that I have. He gets mad when he's like, I don't remember that one.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, these are all replicas. They're all authentic as far as originality goes. Some of them have been rewrapped to match, but like the yellow kit's like a rewrap. The silver Evil Knievel one's original. Red, white, and blue's original. I think you can still
yeah.
see the boxcar flat black one behind me. But yeah, that's kind of like how I got my thing going is you know, I was touring. I didn't have a whole lot of time. I kept getting asked to rewrap stuff, and I always had
Mhm.
interest in it. So I just started like tinkering, and I would do it for friends, not really charge anybody any money. And then COVID hits, and you're like, shit, like now what? Like, what do I do? So
Yeah,
literally in a little tiny apartment, I used to live in Jersey City, like in this little tiny apartment. Thank God my roommate is like my best friend. I would just literally start rewrapping drums in my apartment, and
just like fucking noxious fumes everywhere. Just everybody
yeah,
getting
be like,
silly,
like,
fucking
dude,
brain rot.
he literally would be sitting there playing like Xbox Live, and I'm just like sanding shit. Like,
Well,
um,
the reason why I ask is because I'm noticing it's the Gibraltar black bracket that's
mhm,
on the Evo Knievel one.
mhm,
And I know that's like authentic to that period of time, because I definitely had a kit or two that had that particular type of bracket.
It's
So
weird.
I wasn't sure because didn't
Yeah.
Travis recently get rid of a lot of that stuff?
Yeah, so it's funny. So the bracket you're talking about, it might be so like DW had Gibraltar brackets that looked very similar, where they had like the wing nut. It might have been a DW version, but yeah. So like it's kind of been a fun thing where now that's kind of been my thing is doing like authentic not even just restorations, but replicas where like we're
Mhm.
talking down to like you said, like wing nuts. Like every little
Yeah,
detail has to be like precise. So like all the
yeah,
logo heads are like replicas of like what Travis would have had or whoever. Like I'm working on a Cyrus one of his first
yeah.
kits where same thing. I want to do a replica of Chuck from Simple Plan where like every little detail. So that's kind of
Mhm.
what I do. And yeah, I just wanted to nail all the details. And it's funny when you see it, much like yourself, they're like, is that his? Like,
Yeah.
no, I made it as close as I possibly could.
Yeah, the only reason why I ask is I remember in the shop when you'd walk in, there was like two entrances because it was two big bays.
Hmm.
And you enter one side, it was like the artist relation sort of office, but then the other one, there was like a little office before you actually made it into the big hall where all the shit was at.
Hmm.
And Daniel would just stuff like kits there, and that was one of the kits I remember being stuffed in that like officey sort of storagey type area. I don't
Yeah.
know if the black and yellow one was there. I don't think the American flag one was there, but that one was definitely there, and it just sat there fucking forever.
Yeah,
Like
I
when he
heard
was
the
done with it, he
stories
was just
about
sitting
that.
done with it.
Yeah, like that front office became Travis's like storage unit, and we've heard that like the Evil Knievel kit was literally just like the shop beater until he took it out with Blink, and obviously he sold them all on Reverb recent what was it, a couple years ago for like
Yeah,
between like 25 and 30 grand. And
it's insane,
yeah, you remember
insane.
the Troy Lee kit? Like that thing was sick. And then his centerfold of his ex-wife. Like until that
Yeah,
point, I had never seen close-ups of that kit until
yeah,
those reverb listings. So I want to ask you a few more questions transitioning, man.
mhm, yeah.
So when the Guitar Center stuff happened, were you still with them? And when did you decide to leave Orange County and transition over to Q with Jeremy?
Um, so I think that transition happened. When the fuck did that happen? I think it was like around 2008 ish, 2000, maybe late 2007, 2008. It was just a period of time in which the company was clearly going in a different direction. You know, the Center thing was happening. Jeremy was gone. I think at that point Max was gone. I'm pretty sure Max was gone.
Hmm.
And it was just things were just getting lost in the shuffle. Let's just put it that way. And I was actually before I did the Q thing, I was approached by this company called Dark Horse.
Oh,
The owner,
it's funny. We actually have him where I'm in talks with so it's Anthony at the time. I'm in talks with him
yeah,
because he used to be an Orange County dealer before he
yeah,
started Dark Horse, and I'm a Jersey guy. So we're trying to get him on
yeah,
actually.
yeah. He probably has a lot of information from a different, that the
Different
sort of dealer
perspective,
perspective.
yeah.
But he approached me somewhat, uh, I want to say aggressively, but he was very enthusiastic, and it was kind of like, well, Orange County's great, but it's hard to get shit done. And I have this dude making cool drums, and he could do whatever. He was like, I could do whatever you want. Just let me know I could do whatever you want. Sent me out like a loaner kit, just a lot of shit. It was just very enthusiastic and very helpful, and just like was what I was looking for at the time. And I made sort of the jump from Orange County to Dark Horse for a little bit. And I remember
I
I
did
got a
not know
call from
that.
Jeremy. Yeah, it wasn't very long because it was towards the end of Poison the Well, and then when Poison the Well stopped, I didn't do anything musically professional. Like it was like 2012, 2013, something like that. I just kind of laid low and was just kind of doing other shit. And then when I started playing again, I started playing with that band Big Black Delta, which at the time it's a solo dude,
Hmm.
electro pop. He put out his first record and it started blowing up within that particular world. And I remember that's around the time that Jeremy was starting Q. He didn't really have too many people. It was before Alon had jumped on. It was like maybe a hand of like four, five, six dudes, and that's around the time that I made the jump to Q. But the Orange County thing leaving, it was just it from what I could remember because it's such a long time ago. It feels like just things were sort of like falling apart, you know.
Yeah. Interesting question that just popped up. So, going back in time and looking at some old photos, you used to be a Peisty guy. Did you get that
Mhm.
connection to Zildjian through Orange County and Kirsten?
Mhm.
Sweet.
Yeah, I
That's
hit
what I
up
thought.
Max
Okay.
because yeah, I hit up Max because at the time Peisty, and I still love the Peisty stuff. It's a very specific sound.
Hmm.
Um, but the stuff that they were offering me wasn't really what I wanted to play. Let's just put it like that. And I contacted Max and I was like, "Hey, you think Daniel would like could you get Daniel to sort of hook me up with Zildjian? Would that be possible?" And like a day or so later, it's like boom, 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 and I got the email for Kirsten, and she's sending me fucking stuff, and it was hard. Once I got like the Zildjian shit, I was like, this is kind of what I'm looking for. Like Peisty has some really amazing stuff, but they're for me they were lacking in some areas for my particular taste. Where like Zildjian just kind of like they just kind of hit every mark.
No, it makes sense, but I always wondered that. It's like when I was saying, I was looking back, I'm like, oh, Peisty. I'm like, when did he switch? And I'm like, well, I'd have to guess he switched because, why not, right? It was there for the taking. Why not?
It was a better relationship. It was a better deal. I was, and the most important part was I was getting symbols that like, hey, this is part of my sound. Like I like this, I like that, rather than taking a product that like was good but didn't feel like it reflected what I was looking for. And then when I wanted a different product within the Peisty world, the price tag that came along with it was like, okay, that's a lot of money, and like I know we're playing in front of people,
Hmm.
so it's like I. I can't continue to play this thing I'm not stoked on that doesn't sound that awesome to my ears when I can go to Zildjian and I will get I will get full support there. So that's kind
Gotcha.
of the nicest way of saying that, I guess.
Gotcha. And then another random one. Was
Mhm.
the guy hitting you up from Dark Horse? Was that a guy named Stevo?
No, it was Anthony
Anthony it was?
directly.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I
Anthony
know
approached
around
me.
that time they sold, Anthony sold the company to a guy named Stevo, so I wasn't sure if that was because, do you know the band Streetlight Manifesto? So,
Yep.
Chris Thatcher was actually like part of that company as well. So
Mhm.
I wasn't sure. It was like very interesting, like who was owning the company at that point, who was reaching out to you, and I didn't know that you played their drums even. Do you know where that kid is, or what did you get out of that?
I got an acrylic. So okay, so that just really quick on that one.
Yeah.
He had hooked me up with like an acrylic kit. It was like a 14 by 10 rack, 24 by 10 kick, 16 by 16 floor, 18 by 16 floor, and I think I did it fucking like a 20 by 20, like just turbo mega fucking size drums. Um, and we were on tour, and all our gear got stolen, and that was the kit that had gotten stolen. So then what happened after that was we did an insurance claim, got the money for the insurance claim. I rebought the same kit. And then after that, I think when I left Dark Horse to do Q, um, I think I sold it. I needed,
Hmm.
times of a touring musician, a little difficult. So I think I had to sell it at some point,
Interesting.
if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I saw it. I think it would have been at like the Williamsburg Hall of Music. I'm trying to remember
Mhm.
what year. I guess it would have been 2014. So yeah, you were with Census Fail at that point, and I saw you. That was with your Q kit. I saw you do the anniversary tours on that. And was that
Yep.
the same kit that you did the? So that would have been Let It Unfold You. The next one would have been Still Searching. Did you use that same kit?
No. So the Let It Unfold You run was, if I remember correctly, it was a galvanized steel kit,
Hmm.
13.9, 24, 14, 16, 16, 18, 16, like, more the traditional sizes. And then when I did the Still Searching run, actually the kit is basically here. It was fuck, I don't know if I can see that, like
Oh,
the
there it is.
Marine
Yeah,
kit.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the kit that I used on that tour.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was trying to remember off the top of my head. I'm like, obviously I know, and I'm like, but
Yeah, no, it was that kit, and that kit just sounds so good. And obviously, Q is no longer around, so I have two kits. I have that one, and then I have a stainless steel, like a black powder coated stainless steel with like inlays on the stainless steel with like wood rings. That sounds. I've used it on quite a few records, and it sounds amazing. and a few gentlemen's snare drums, like a copper, aluminum, and steel. And that's, I mean, I'm not telling any of that shit. It's not only does it sound amazing, but Jeremy's no longer around. So
Yeah.
this is kind of the stuff that, like, yeah, that's just not going anywhere.
No worries, man. I love that you still have it, but this is my moment. I'm gonna have to make that little Patreon tease that you're gonna be kind enough to stick around with us for a bonus segment. So our listeners out there, man, head over to Patreon. Chris is gonna talk about, of course, drums, details, all the nerdy, fun, nitty gritty, and yeah. So head over to Patreon for the bonus segment. But carrying on, man. Like, one,
Mhm.
I just have to say, hearing that kit live, ridiculous. I think I was on side stage for the or yeah, I think it was Still Searching. The thing rips. Yeah.
2414, man. 2414. It's been, God, I haven't used a different sized kick drum probably in like 10 years. Like for live and studio. Live, it's pretty been consistently when it's been my kit. Obviously, rentals is a
Mm-hmm.
whole different thing. But
Crapshoot.
owning a kit, dude, it's still a crapshoot. But you're always going
That's
to get
yeah.
like 24 by 16, 24 by 18, like that sort of thing. Like we just toured Europe, and I'm a DW guy now, and I got like a 24. I think it was like a 24 by 16 or 24 by 18. That's just the standard. Yeah.
We're kind of approaching the end, man. So I got a few more
Mhm.
for you. In your
Let's do
humble
it.
opinion, what do you
Mhm.
think could have saved Orange County?
I don't know, because I don't know the finances and I don't know the full business dealings behind the scenes. I think that probably contributed a lot to the Guitar Center deal. Just I'm making a assumption, you know. Um, but I think that probably, if they didn't go under, they probably would have did well. But there's too many like competitors, because SJC now has sort of took what they did and they're doing their own thing. But
Mm-hmm.
it's that was the origins was Orange County Drums. So maybe they would have continued on and got their drums out to different people. But I don't know. I don't quite know what could have saved them.
Yeah, I mean, after what 20 episodes now doing this and asking that same question, kind of formulating, they didn't really plan accordingly, man. It was just kind of like flying by the seat of their pants or just growing at such a fast rate with popularity. It's like, yeah, it's great that the name was getting out there, but I don't think the foundation was put into place for long-term success. And then we add in all the other factors, competitors, housing market. And what's really sad is, the Guitar Center stuff had potential. I think Guitar Center really dropped the ball when you have arguably one of the greatest drummers of all time still endorsing the brand and didn't do anything with Travis.
Yeah, it seems like a very missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, when someone we asked that question, what could have saved it? Like, I don't think what could have saved it. I don't know if it could have been saved from the Guitar Center buyout. I think that might have been like an eventual, like, just probably would have happened.
Mhm.
But I think keeping it to what you and I and others might view Orange County as, I think Guitar Center really dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, I don't know the sort of the contract what their deal entailed. I mean, if I would have been a partner, I would have been like, cool. Well, we still manufacture, we still have final say over everything. Nothing goes to market without us having the sort of final say on things. And that may have been in there. I don't know. Like I said, that's not my zone.
Yeah.
Um, but that I just wouldn't have allowed anything to go to the marketplace that would sort of diminish the quality of the name. Because once you torch the brand,
Yeah,
it's
it's
done.
it's it's kind of hard. Like, I mean, like I look at like Rogers for an example as like enough time has passed where I think, and same with like Slingerland, that enough time has passed that you don't have all the like the hits of on the name. You know what I mean? Like there's enough time that people kind of forgotten about like the bad era or maybe all the not so good times. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think yeah, there's so many speculations where it's just I don't know. I view them like they still should be here, but in the same time, it's again, sometimes it's hard to put into words. It's just one of those things where it's such a cool time in music and the drums, it's almost in a way it's fitting that they kind of just went out the way they did in a way that they don't exist anymore, and it's just a relic to me in a way.
Yeah.
I got to say there are two guys. Adrian's still rocking Orange County, and John Otto's still rocking it, man.
Yeah, wasn't there like a video of like John playing like one of his kits from back in the day?
Yeah, it goes all the time, and like they just did that. Limp Bizkit just did that tour. What was it like? Pantera and Metallica, I think it was. And
Mhm.
there's literally a show of them in Philly in the pouring, like torrential downpour. You would have told me in 2025 that Limp Bizkit is still relevant, putting out new music, and like I think their new song has been like #1 or something like that. Like that I just can't even wrap my head around. And I'm not trying to shit on Limp Bizkit. It blows
Cyclical,
my
bro.
mind. Yeah, like.
Things things come in cycles, man. Things come in
They
cycles.
do. And like speaking of like we said SJC earlier, I know I want to kind of wrap this up to one of our last questions, but like bringing it back, like with SJC, people are still making Orange County designs with SJC. Like I'll see them and be like, oh no shit,
Yeah,
like that's totally cool because obviously they can't get in Orange County now, but yeah,
yeah.
the nostalgia and the designs are still just as popular.
What's wild to me is that like, why doesn't homie at HJC just try to buy the OCDP trademark?
I don't know. We're gonna have Mike on from SJC. We got to ask him.
I mean, also at the same time, he's also successfully built his own thing. But like, not to say that even Daniel and Adrian would even sell it. Maybe they won't. Maybe regardless of what it is, maybe it's a very sentimental, personal thing to them.
Yeah, lots of questions. Daniel, I don't want to jinx myself here. He did say he might do an episode, so fingers crossed. If he's on here, I gotta ask him.
Yeah,
He'll be like,
like I
"Nope,
said,
show over."
yeah. I don't
And
know Daniel that well, but like he was always very cool and very friendly and very generous with me. And I remember Jeremy speaking very very highly of him. Same thing with Max. Um, Obviously before Jeremy passed, and then Max had told me that throughout the years that Daniel was just a really great guy and just like creme de la creme drum tech.
dude, I mean, the fact that the dude's literally like is on tour with Travis, Blink 182 is just as big, bigger than ever. And I could message him on Instagram like with a stupid ass question like, "Hey, I found this used. I don't think it's like real," or like, "Hey, did you guys ever do this?" And like he'd answer back or like, "Hey, do you remember what size, I don't know, Chad played in 1998 on this record?" Or and he'd be like, he shoots back, "Yeah," and he'll answer it. So I'm always grateful for that. Like super generous.
Yeah,
Like I don't doesn't owe me anything, and always
no,
answers the
but I'm
questions.
sure he's appreciative and humbled the fact that something that he created with his business partners slash friends, that people take interest, regardless of how big it was or you know is not or whatever. Like that's always flattering. I'm sure he's very flattered by it.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, man. Here's it, the final one. The final
All
question.
right,
We made it here. Did you
we made it here.
realize, I know, right? Did you realize that you were part of what was going to become a legacy in the drum world?
No, and I don't even really think about it like that at all. Uh, like it doesn't like how do I say this? Like it doesn't really ever occur to me in that way. Just because like when I think of Orange County, I don't necessarily think of myself. I think of like John Otto. I think of Travis Barker. I think of Adrian Young. I think of Chad Sexton. Those are the guys that I think that are like sort of associated with the brand in a very meaningful way. Um, and like whether I am or not, it's not for me to say. Like I just like the company, I like the drums, I like the people running the company, I like the builders of the company, and I worked with them up until the point that I felt it was more beneficial for me to go somewhere else. And no bad blood, no beef. Obviously, like I had eventually relinked up with Jeremy, and I was a Q guy for 10 plus years before his passing. I didn't want to leave Q, because Jeremy is a fucking great guy, but shit happens. But yeah, once again, it's not for me to be like trying to phrase this correctly.
Hmm.
It's not for me to be like, yeah, I'm associated with this brand and it has a sort of meaningful legacy within the drum world, and I'm a contributor of that or a lesser face of that. It's not like maybe more egotistical people would think that way, but for me, it's just like that's not for me. Just like if
Gotcha.
somebody likes a record that we put out, it's not for me to say whether it's the most incredible thing or the worst thing. I did this thing and I put it out, or I like the company and I fucking bought some drums and I played them, and maybe some people liked it and or didn't like it, or like whatever, like I guess that's what kind of like that would be my sort of take on it. It's not for me to sort of say if like somebody's like bought a kit because of me. That's fucking awesome. Somebody's like, I hate those drums and I hate that drummer. Okay, cool. That too, like it's not for me to yeah, it's not for me to say, I guess.
No, I appreciate that answer. It's definitely a different perspective and a different take. And, I don't think I've ever heard anybody be like, yeah, fuck that drummer or fuck that band.
No, but I'm
I
just
know.
I'm just going
Yeah.
I'm just talking about like stupid extremes that like nobody's gonna like invest that much energy into disliking somebody unless I fucking ran over their cat or something.
I mean, unless it's Nickelback. But
Yeah, but those guys are rich. They don't
no,
give a shit. I think they've embraced the fact that they're like hated and they're kind
oh,
of like a
I
meme.
love it. Like,
You
I
know?
think that they came out, didn't they like come out with like a Netflix documentary about that? Like, everybody hates Nickelback or something. Like, good for them. Like, fuck it, go for it, dude. Like,
Yeah, those
own
dudes
it.
clearly like money. They like money, so they're like cool. Like, hey,
Also, if people, whether
keep
they
it
love it
going.
or hate it, if they're talking about your band, you're doing something right. So, what's
Hey,
up?
man, what is it? It's like the opposite of love isn't hate; it's indifference.
I like that one.
So
Yeah,
like if you're doing something and nobody gives a shit, you should be worried. But if people are like, I love that, or people are like, I hate that, you're like, keep it coming.
yeah, right on.
Keep talking about it. It's invoking some sort of emotion.
Totally. Well, man, Chris, dude, this has been so awesome. I could literally just sit here and talk drums all day with you, but I know you're
Yeah,
probably still recovering from the
good.
jet lag. It's been fun. That was Chris Hornbrook, a drummer who made a career out of pushing boundaries from Poison the Well to Senses Fail and beyond. His precision, creativity, and honesty helped define a generation of heavy music. If you enjoyed this episode, don't miss the bonus conversation with Chris, available now on our Patreon, where we dig even deeper into his gear, his influences, and his take onto modern drumming. This has been the Fully Vented Podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.